Why is the stock market at an all-time high? Why is real estate at an all-time high? Residential specifically. Why is Bitcoin at an all-time high or very close to it? Why is gold at an all-time high? Anybody? Anybody? Okay. I talked on a few minutes ago about the printing, right? So when the money is printed or zeros are added to the ledger, Federal Reserve ledger, that money is getting pushed out. How does that get pushed out? It's in every, by the way, every global, well, let's not say global, but every Federal Reserve of each country, right? They can do that. But we are the only ones that we can make money out of thin air. Most countries, and EU specifically, China and Japan, they can't do that. They don't have that. They're not able to print money and spend. So with that said, but they can pump money into their economies many different ways. They can buy bonds back and then issue, they can do repos, overnight repos, short-term pumping, long-term. But overall, we have liquidity in this globe. Liquidity in the globe has exploded, meaning money has been created out of thin air for years now, actually since 2008. Okay, so this is our 16th year or 17th year of creation of money out of thin air, and we just pump it into the economy, and we call it global money supply, global liquidity. In this country, we call it M2. M2 is how much money is being pumped into the economy. Okay, this is a fact. Go check it. It's public info as well. So global M2 has a lot to do with what's happening with all those hard assets, with the stock market being at an all-time high, with the Bitcoin being at an all-time high, gold being at an all-time high, real estate being at an all-time high. And there is a very, very specific correlation between the global liquidity or global M2 and what happens to these asset classes that I'm talking about, okay? And this is something that I've been paying attention to for a long, 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 long time. And I came up with this correlation that's uncanny. Okay, so on the left hand chart, this is from my Bloomberg. So in this goes back about 2019, 2018. So that's when the white line, by the way, is global liquidity. Okay. And the yellow chart or yellow line is S&P 500. Do you guys see how correlated those two are? And S&P 500, by the way, lags the global liquidity by about a month. Okay, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin in a minute. So when global liquidity exploded, and that happened, by the way, with debt, right? We're issuing a lot of debt and pumping money into our systems. Look how correlated these two are. So when the Fed started raising rates and going to quantitative tightening and reduce the balance sheet, global liquidity, which we are massive part of global liquidity, but this includes all the countries. When I say global liquidity, all the industrialized countries, the Chinas, the Japans, the EU as well. When global liquidity starts shrinking, watch out below. Look at the S&P 500. Look what happened. Every time global liquidity goes up, there is a pump into the markets. And look how correlated we are. And if you guys can notice, by the way, on the upper right hand corner, global liquidity peaked about last quarter of last year, and it's getting reduced. And the market's still hanging in there to a reasonable degree. But the sell-offs that we're having that are really sharp now are all due to global liquidity being reduced. And this is another indicator that you guys need to watch. But more importantly than stocks, global liquidity or M2 money supply, global M2, is absolutely amazingly correlated with what's happening to Bitcoins, as Bitcoin is a holder of value and maybe an anti-inflation fighter, right? This is going back to the inception of Bitcoin to 2012, right? So the blue line is global M2. Okay, it actually will match the yellow line or the white line on the left-hand chart, but let's just look at the right-hand chart for a second. Okay, so Bitcoin has so much to do with global liquidity, so correlated. Okay, and the black line on the chart, by the way, is Bitcoin's price. Okay, look what's happening to Bitcoin and global liquidity. So when global liquidity is this high, and every time it corrects, Bitcoin corrects. I mean, this is uncanny. You guys see the correlation here, right? So follow this. This is also public information, people. You know, all these nuggets that I'm sharing with you guys, these are things that I follow. And you put a picture together and you take a little bit of a long-term view of what you're doing with your Bitcoin or with your crypto or with your stocks or whatever not, or if you're DCAing into indexes, but please pay attention to these things. And that's one of the reasons I created the channel, because I'm pretty sure other than people like me and who are involved in the business, they don't pay any attention to it. So add these tools to your toolbox, start paying attention to these things. And global liquidity, global M2, has everything to do with what Bitcoin is doing right now. The one part that I'm kind of thinking about now is that, Bitcoin, I think today is like 105, right? Almost making an all-time high. And what happens if Doge is successful, okay, and is able to rein in some of that frivolous spending, and global liquidity is not necessary to pump the economies? Is Bitcoin going to correct? Is this the last hurrah for Bitcoin? I don't know. Price will take precedence, obviously, but please do pay attention to the correlation between stocks and global liquidity, and Bitcoin and global liquidity. Look at gold, right? Same thing. If you look at all the hard assets making all-time highs, it's because there's so much money out there. The global liquidity is pushing all these assets up because all this money has to be put to work. And where does it get to put the work? Well, some of it goes to gold, some of it goes to Bitcoin, mostly goes to stocks, US stocks specifically, because US stock market has outperformed every single stock market over the last 2 years by 2x minimum, depending on what country we're talking about. So all that money is coming here, going into stocks. So am I saying market is expensive? No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that watch global liquidity. When global liquidity starts shrinking, asset classes don't do well, because that's money being taken out of the system. Well, the money has been borrowed. We know what happened with the Japanese yen carry trade debacle a few months ago. I'm not saying any of these things are going to happen. I'm not bearish whatsoever. All I'm saying is that, pay attention to these small nuances that I pay attention to, and keep it in mind that global liquidity is heavily correlated to what happens to the S&P 500 as well as Bitcoin.